sunshiny day.
Sunshiny day.
Yeah, gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Sunshiny day.
It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Sunshiny day.
It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Wow. This is an awesome community. You know, people, Zoomers, if you can't see it, but we have a dance-a-thon in the back. That is awesome. It gets the juices going. I love this community. And behold, our speaker this morning is our practitioner and ministerial student, Susan Jones. You all know her. She's always here with this beautiful, smiling face. And what I love about listening to her do her talks, they're clear. I understand them. Number two, she's funny. I learned something about her. Her vulnerability allows me to connect with her. And isn't this what it's all about, is our connection? And this morning, she is going to connect to each and every one of us, and you Zoomers too. Come on up, Susan.
Thank you. Wow, that was sweet. I could just sit and listen to a little bit more of that. Well, first of all, thank you, intrepid people who are here in this room, because I know that for every person here, you had to go through something to get here. And so I appreciate that you're here. And I know there are some faces here that I have never seen before, and I'm so excited about that as well. Plus, I see my tried and true fan club is here today, and so I'm so appreciative of that. So during this month, and also I know that there are some intrepid people on Zoom today, and so I want to say thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you. So during this month of January, our Seed of Awakening is Root and Reboot. So we're reviewing basic science of mind concepts to remind ourselves of the power that we possess as expressions of the divine. We started with the thing itself, which is that one creator, that one power, that one presence that is the source of everything, and it is everything. That means it is you and it is me. Then we discussed the way it works, which is through us and through all of creation. So today, what it does. Well, I've got the short answer for you. So take a moment and look to your left. Look to your left. Look to your right. Look out the window. Look around this room. What it does is it creates. And everything you see, including yourself, is that. God experiences through its creation. And every quality of the divine is available to its creation to the degree that its creation can embody it. The divine mind is infinite and contains infinite possibilities, but it must have an outlet. And for us, our mental receptivity to divine ideas is that outlet. God can only give us what we can take, meaning what we can understand and believe. Ernest Holmes says, we make things too complicated. We take simple truths and overthink and analyze to the point of confusion. The simple truth is there is an infinite mind that is impartial. It gives alike to all, and it values everyone and everything. Its nature is to give, and our nature is to receive. If we interfere with this simple process with our doubts, fears, and certainty, then we block the light. And as Emerson and our own Reverend Art Scott advise, we should get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. Thank you, Art. God works through everything, not just people. God creates forests, flowers, birds, and icebergs. I had an interesting thought when I was taking a walk the other day, and I was walking past the trees with their bare branches. And I thought, if those trees were like us, would they be saying, "Oh my gosh, I hope my leaves come back in"? What if all this rain makes my roots weak and then I tip over? Or what if I get bugs? Why, can you imagine nature having those conversations? We're the ones that have those conversations. So when we get prayer requests for little kids and animals, I always know that the demonstration is coming soon. And that's because they seem to have a clear, direct channel to the divine. They don't have the filter of doubt that must be gone through. Comedian Monica Parker was inspired to write a book entitled OMG, How Children See God. When her 7-year-old son approached her and said, "God is inside all living things. So I know who has seen God. My doctor has seen God because he cuts people open." 8-year-old Cameron had this to say. Wrap your head around this because it's good. "God has an invisible head, and he floats in the garden. One side is night, and the other side is day. And God sees the owls and the bunnies and the butterflies. God also rides a motorcycle, but he's playing hockey in Pasadena right now. He can do everything." And this one is my favorite. "What do you think of God?" the teacher asked. After a pause, the young student said, "He's not a think, he's a feel." Little kids and animals are pure beings with a direct connection to their Creator. Their bodies respond to that same divine pattern of perfection within them that we have within us, but without having to get past their bloated nothingness. When my husband and I lived in Creston on over 10 acres, we decided to build a dog kennel yard to the side of the house, and it was going to have a tarp over the top of it. Now, before I could get involved in this plan, my husband chopped 2 trees off, chopped them off, about 4 feet tall of a stump, 2 of them. And when I saw that, I was just horrified, but I couldn't figure out how to put the tree back together, so I just rolled with it, right? But the most interesting thing is, as the weeks, the months, and the years went by, what do you think those stumps did? They totally turned into bushes. They sprouted leaves, they turned green, they turned colors in the fall and the spring. It was amazing to me. And I watched that and I thought to myself, every time I saw that, I thought, life will not be denied. It just won't. It will figure out a way. Ernest Holmes said, "The universal mind contains all knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of all things. To it, all things are possible. To us, as much is possible as we can conceive. Should all the wisdom of the universe be poured over us, we should only yet receive that which we are ready to understand." This explains why all of us have knowledge and expertise in a variety of different areas. Each of us has at least one superpower. Artists see the painting on the blank canvas. Scientists conceive of the latest discoveries in their mind before ever performing an experiment. The song lives in the mind of the musician before hands ever touch an instrument. So what is your specialty? What is your superpower? This specialty is proof that you have the ability to access the divine knowledge based on what you believe you're capable of. And if you have a hard time coming up with something, ask a friend what they think your superpower is. In fact, even if you feel pretty confident about what it is for you, ask them anyway, because I'll bet they know more things about you that are super than you know about yourself. When I was in my 20s, I dated this guy for about 8 years, and I just wanted him to marry me. For 8 years, I just kept thinking, what's the matter with you? What's the matter with me? What's happening here? And I remember asking him, what is it? What's up? Well, he was a songwriter and a musician, and he said, well, I just always pictured myself with an artist. And I was like, oh, okay. So one day I was speaking with a mutual friend of ours, and I told him what this guy had said to me. And he looked at me and he said, Susan, you have an art. You are an artist. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you love. Right? That never occurred to me, that was as much an art, maybe even a better art, than if I could be a sculptor or a painter. So what are we telling ourselves about what is possible? Belief is the driver of the demonstration. It's one thing to speak powerful affirmations. Remember, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me, right? Remember that? So here's the deal. If I were to tell you that I'm going to go to bed tonight and I'm going to speak a powerful affirmation that when I wake up in the morning, I am perfectly capable of performing brain surgery, would you let me operate on your brain? I hope not, because I don't believe that, okay? I don't believe I could do that. But if I told you I'm going to go to bed tonight and I'm going to say a powerful affirmation that in the morning when I wake up, I will pull from the pantry everything necessary to make the most delicious breakfast, would you come and have breakfast with me? Because, I believe I could do that. That's the difference. Belief is the driver of this. But what if you're called to something that you never thought you could do? I wanted to share the following story with you because it is a perfect example of what God does. Darren Harrison was relaxing with his feet up in the back of a single-engine Cessna after a fishing trip in the Bahamas when the pilot told him and another passenger, guys, I got to tell you, I don't feel good. He said, I've got a headache and I'm fuzzy and I just don't feel right. 39-year-old Darren said, well, what do we need to do? And at that point, there was no response. Harrison climbed into the cockpit and found the pilot completely unconscious and saw that the plane was diving fast. All I saw when I came up to the front was water out the right window, and I knew it was coming quick. At that point, I knew if I didn't react, that we would die. Harrison said he reached over the unconscious pilot and grabbed the controls, slowly pulling back the stick to level the plane. It was a common sense move, he said. Harrison jumped in and put on the headset and reached an air traffic controller in Florida who asked if he knew the plane's position. Harrison said the GPS was out and he had no idea. So the air traffic controller then asked, what can you see? He said, I see the state of Florida and I see a small airport. At this point, he refused to let fear set in. When I was flying and saw the state of Florida, at that second, I knew I'm going to land there. He said, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I knew I'm going to have to land this plane because there's no other option. This is when the direct connection to the divine kicked in. Harrison said he had to get home to his wife, Brittany, 7 months pregnant with their first child. People said, what if you had crashed and died? You could have at least called her. You could have reached out to her. You had time. Harrison said, in fact, I want to say there's a lot of things he could have done. He could have started pleading and bargaining with God. How many people do that? Please, oh, please, oh, please. He could have called all of his loved ones and said goodbye. But Harrison said, in my mind, I knew I wasn't going to die. And the thought never crossed my mind to call my wife and tell her goodbye. Powerful. So the air traffic controller, Robert Morgan, coached Harrison into a safe, actually perfect landing at the Palm Beach International Airport. The pilot received medical attention, and both men were able to reunite several weeks later. So, can you think of a time in your life when you were able to do something you never thought you could do? I think we can all think of something. Might not be landing an airplane, but it's something, right? These are the moments when the divine self takes over and you operate from a place of just knowing. Back in 2017, I was taking a class with the Revs, we call them, with Dr. Frank and Dr. Terry. And at the end of the class, Dr. Terry approached me and said, I've got a funny question to ask you, but Spirit is asking me to ask you this. And I said, okay, yikes, okay, what is that? She said, would you be interested or willing in doing a Sunday talk? And so the bloated nothingness in me was like, are you kidding me? I don't think so. But the divine in me said yes. It formed the words and made that word come out of my mouth, yes. And so during the process of creating that talk, I went through the roller coaster. I mean, I literally went through like physical wanting to throw up, I'm sorry to say that, and feeling good and feeling bad and feeling good and all those things, right? But when I got up here the first time and I stood here and I looked out here, what I felt was divine love, overwhelming. It just entered me. And it took over me. And at the end of the talk, I couldn't even tell you what happened because I really feel like I, Susan, the mortal being, was not here. It was amazing to me. And to me, that was my experience of the divine just taking over in so many ways, showing me I'm safe and that I can do this, right? Holmes said, undoubtedly, each of us is now demonstrating our concept of life. But trained thought is more powerful than untrained. The more power one gives to one's thought, the more completely one believes that one's thought has power, the more power it will have. There's no hocus pocus in mental treatment. It is always definite, conscious, concrete, and explicit. This is what spiritual consciousness is. The spiritual part is a given. It is unchanging. The part that can change is our conscious awareness of spirit and our belief that we can express that spirit in infinite ways. So when you ask for prayer and state your declaration, speak your word of truth, ask yourself, do I believe that I can have this? Not do I know how this is going to happen, because that's not our job. That's Spirit's job. But if the answer is that you do not believe that you can have it, then ask, well, what can I believe? Belief is strengthened over time and as we experience positive demonstrations. If there's something up for you that is so frightening to you that you can't find a scrap of belief, then can you believe that the soul support team can see your good for you? If you can believe that, Spirit has all the room it needs to create the demonstration. So how can we move from what we know is our gift, our superpower, and express even more of God's infinite possibilities without the need for a life and death situation? I'd like to ask the band to come on up, and I will offer you a call to action here, and then I'll finish with a prayer. So the call to action is there something you really want to try but fear is holding you back? Art, singing, public speaking, dancing. Give it a try, even if it's just in your own house with nobody around. Ask your friends what they think your gifts are, and then own those gifts. Build your spiritual consciousness by paying attention to all the ways that Spirit is expressing through you right now. Strengthen your belief and know when to hand something off to a prayer partner. And so if you would take a moment and just close your eyes, I'd like to end with a prayer. Oh, let's do a couple of deep breaths. Let's breathe in and then out. And another one in. I know that the divine mind, that source of all there is active and working through each person here in this room, each person who is tuned in on Zoom, and really each person everywhere. And I know that each of us is open-minded, open-hearted to receive the divine ideas, to create something new, to try something new, to find our superpower, whether it is creating music or art, or whether it is creating food, or whether it is just loving. We all have the superpower that is God's gift to us, and all of God's qualities and gifts are available to us. And so I know that each person is open to finding those new areas, those new superpowers, those new gifts that are just waiting for them to say yes to. And I know that as we express all that we came here to be in our lives, everyone in our life, our closest people, to the clerk at the grocery store, to the person that we drive by on the road, everyone is blessed by our gifts and our superpowers. It is not a think, it's a feel. And I know that we are sending that vibration of love and creativity and joy and beauty out into the world. And I am so grateful for that. I know that my words are powerful, and I know that God says yes to these words and yes to every person who is hearing these words. And so I release this prayer knowing the demonstration is done. And together we say, and so it is.